Welcome back to another episode of Keeping It Real. I am your host, Jonathan Lundy, and my man next to me is
What's up? It's your boy Kevin Moore. How y'all doing?
sweet Kevin. How you doing, man? It's been a minute. You've been gone. You've been gone for a minute. What's going on?
Yeah, I took a little mini vacation, but I'm back now. Everything is good.
All right,
Glad to be here. So,
cool, refreshing, rejuvenated. All right, let's get right
sir.
into it. We got a very special guest today. Her name is Faithe. She is currently the Associate Athletic Director of Compliance for Central Michigan Athletics. She is responsible for day-to-day compliance activities that leads the department in education, monitoring, enforcement, and maintenance of NCAA rules. She is also the administrator of the field hockey program. Before CMU, she served as compliance coordinator at Weber State, but she began her career at Georgia State. Please welcome Faith Ways. How you doing,
How
Faith?
you doing?
Hey, Faith, how you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. How are y'all?
Great.
Pretty good. Can't complain. Thank you for agreeing to this interview with us. Let's get right into it. We want to get started with, like how you got into college athletic administration and where does your passion for it come from?
Yeah, so thank you all for having me first. I appreciate you bringing me on the show. But I have a little bit of an unconventional journey that kind of led me to college athletics. So when I graduated from college, my first job was working for the Super Bowl host committee, and it was being hosted in my home state of Michigan. So that was a great opportunity for me. I had the opportunity to be introduced into the sports industry on kind of the largest scale that there is, helping to put on the Super Bowl. So that was one of my proudest moments and one of my most, shining moments of my career. So that was my introduction into the sports world. Fell in love with it, loved it. After that was over, took a kind of pivot in my career, became a police investigator. So I was actually investigating the police on the civil side. So it wasn't quite internal affairs, but I was responsible for investigating civil complaints against police officers. So that was kind of my introduction into compliance and that area and that realm. And so I tried to figure out, hey, how can I kind of marry my two passions of compliance and athletics? Started doing some research, discovered athletic compliance on the collegiate level. And so started trying to pursue that as a career and got into the industry, made my entrance at Georgia State, then proceeded to Weber State, like John mentioned. And then now I'm at Central. So that's kind of my path. I figured it out and I love it so far. My passion kind of comes from just wanting to help others and provide student athletes with the best experience that they can have and kind of motivate and inspire them so we can help, get this next generation ready for the world.
Wow, you've been all over from police
Right.
departments to the Super Bowl at Ford Field. Hopefully the
Right.
Lions get good into a Super Bowl. Hopefully the Super Bowl
Hey,
come back
one
to
day,
Detroit.
one day. I would don't hold your breath, but one day we gonna keep up alive.
I doubt that.
Awesome. All right. So what is your exact role at Central Michigan?
So right now, Central, I serve. I am our associate athletic director for compliance. I wear a couple of different hats. I also serve on our executive staff. So it's basically our leadership team that kind of, plots out where the department is going to go, creates policy, leadership, and kind of plans, for all things within the athletics department. So I do that. I'm also a sport administrator for our field hockey program. And then I also serve on our Title IX and Gender Equity Committee. So I kind of ensure and make sure we're doing things the right way with that. So all the way around, pretty much my job is to make sure everybody's kind of doing things the right way and doing what they're supposed to do on their P's and Q's.
Ooh, cool. Now, we all know, the NCAA is very tight when it comes to what the student athlete should and should not be able to do or can or cannot do. So, with your position, do you kind of find yourself conflicted with some of the like disciplinary decisions you have to make?
Sometimes I find myself in situations where it's not ideal, where my hands are a little bit tied. Part of the draw to me for this position was to be creative and to be innovative, to find loopholes, if you will, within the confines of the rules. Some things are very strict. Some of the rules might say you may be able to do this. So it's like, okay, well, that's not a yes, it's not a no. How can I be creative? How can I come up with, ideas that are outside of the box? be innovative and try to create, unconventional solutions for our student athletes. Again, that's going to help them be successful both in the classroom and, on their playing surface. So that's kind of, my niche. I try to be creative and try to do as much as I can, again, within the limitations of the rules. But there are times where, you're a little conflicted and you're like, man, is this really, we're kind of miss the intent sometimes, right? Like I get the purpose of the rules and their probably initial phase and in their, infancy when they were created, but you got to update with the times. And sometimes I think that, we're a little bit behind. I think we're starting to see some movement towards that, where you're seeing some change, some hot topics that are, on the horizon right now within the NCAA realm. But, the hope is that we continue to get better and grow and learn. But yeah, there are times where I'm just kind of like, I don't know about that one.
Wow. Can you disclose like anything specific, like without like giving any names, like something where it's just like, wow, really?
Sometimes a lot of times where you see it the most is with waivers, and I'm pretty sure it's a national thing. Sometimes you'll see in the national news, right? Like I think of one example. This was a few years ago. There's a women's basketball player at Notre Dame, and Arike Agunwale, I think is her name, and she had a waiver approved that allowed her to go on Dancing with the Stars, right? Even though there's money associated with it, just a whole kind of plethora of kind of like raised eyebrows, like, wow, like that's amazing. Like I love to read that waiver and see how they got that approved, and then someone else at my institution, for example, or will submit a waiver to try to get a kid, immediately eligible, citing all kind of, extenuating circumstances that they may have had going on. Maybe they have some family issues, maybe they have financial things, just whatever the case may be. We try to incorporate that all into our waiver, and then, we'll get turned down. And it's like, man, like, I want to know who's in the room making those decisions, because it just kind of seems a little off sometimes. And especially when you don't have the privilege of having all the information, or, being able to kind of dig a little deeper. So that's kind of frustrating sometimes when you're not able to kind of have all the information, because you're kind of like, well, if this is precedent or, it's public, why can't we at least have the back door, be able to review it? Maybe that'll help me write a better waiver next time so that, we can have success. So those are some of the things that are kind of a little bit frustrating. It's always challenging when you're trying to help the student athlete, especially with eligibility and things like that, and you get a waiver that's denied. So that would probably be one of the times where you're just kind of like, man, that's kind of a shot to the chest.
Mm-hmm. Now, it's a hot topic right now. I believe it was last week with Gonzaga head coach, men's basketball head coach Mark Few. He gave remarks at a hearing for about 10 minutes. He was talking about how it's finally time for players to get paid for their name, image, and likeness. But what he was saying, he wanted help from the federal government because as opposed to states, like doing their own laws to keep it fair. And he was saying that he wanted players to get like to be able to get money from like their TikTok, YouTube, social media page or whatnot. But he wanted to also like for it to be fair market value, so like you get what you pull. What do you think about that? Like should states be able to do it by their own way, or should you think like national government should get involved?
I think we need some uniformity. And whether that comes from the federal level or whether that comes from the NCAA, which is, our governing body, you think that would be the ideal place where the guidance would come from. And we're supposed to, be slated to get some guidance from them. I get that they're trying to be very calculated and very, inclusive as far as not missing anything and making sure that they're crossing all their T's and dotting all their I's. But, on the day-to-day basis, we're looking, fast and furious. Like July 1 is coming. And I say July 1 because that's the first date where some states are going to have their state laws go into effect. I know Florida is a state that has July 1 effective date. Nevada also has one. And I believe California, maybe if it's not July 1, it's coming up soon as well. Michigan, actually, our date is not until December 2022. So we have a little bit of time. However, July 1 is kind of our industry date where everybody's kind of like, hey, you got to be ready to go on July 1. So that's how we're planning and what our mindset has been as far as approaching this. I do think student athletes should have the opportunity to, benefit from their name, image, and likeness. Other general student body individuals have that benefit, if they have, a TikTok page or YouTube, or if they want to go, get an endorsement and somebody thinks that they can help them raise their brand and their, national notoriety, then, why not? I do think that you have to look at it from kind of a different lens. I think the kind of solve for X is, what does it look like, right? Do I think that they should be able to do it? Absolutely. But there's a lot of details and intricacies that go within that. It's the how to, right? How do you accomplish it? How do you get it done? How do you make it fair? Your basketball team, take that roster, for example, your number one player is probably not going to be, or I'm sorry, your number 12 player is probably not going to be as, notarized as your number one star player. So you're going to have varying levels, and what makes it fair. And I'll put my Title IX and gender equity hat on, a little bit here too. So how does it look for male sports versus female sports? The reality of it is, with the female sports, you're going to probably have some different interests than you do with male sports, as far as individuals who want you to promote their brand. How do you want them to promote it? What does it look like? So just trying to figure out all of that, how and solve for X is going to be, I think, what's important. And I think that has to be done the right way, which is where the guidance from some type of either the federal government or the NCAA is going to help everybody, just to keep everybody on track and make it fair.
Yeah, I'm really glad you touched on that, the how to aspect, because I feel like a lot of people who say college athletes should be paid, they think it's just that, like they should be paid. But like you said, there's so much more to go into it. You got the different sports that bring in the different amount of money. You got your football is pretty much like your top money grabber across the colleges, and then you got other sports like, I don't know, lacrosse or golf, for example. So you got to look at those options, like how can we effectively, compensate these student athletes. So like, yeah, I was, when you brought that, like how to, it just like I totally agree with you, and I'm glad you like explained that in detail, because there's people who don't necessarily understand like what really goes on like behind those scenes and what it actually would look like.
For sure. And there's a lot of things that I think people don't think about. I mean, these are 18 to 22-year-olds, and you're asking them to make decisions that are going to potentially affect their entire life. And, things that we talk about, you're going to be making money now. That means you got to file taxes.
Mm.
Half of my student athletes don't know how to do a FAFSA, let alone, try to file some taxes. So just different areas, that people don't consider when you're having kind of those, locker room or in the kitchen or water cooler conversations, when people talk about it. But it's like, okay, well, what does it really look like though? Now we have to teach them how to file taxes, because, God forbid you making all this money off of TikTok and nobody ever said, hey, Uncle Sam is coming. Then you have deeper ramifications and, a larger impact down the line, because Uncle Sam will get his regardless.
For sure.
Now or it's gonna be later. So
Shoot, student athlete or not,
exactly.
they got me.
Exactly. I don't care what's in front of your name.
All right. We want to transition to like the nuances of the position that you have. I want to ask, because there's so few black women in an athletic director position, whether it be associate or head. I think Division I has the least amount of black women in a administrative position. D2 I think is second, and I think it gets higher and higher as you go down. Why is it important that black women are in the college athletic administration?
We need to be represented. We need to have representation. And I'll give you a kind of a recent example. You mentioned Mark Few, who was at the hearings last week. I don't think there was a female there, and I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure I don't think there was a female, let alone a black female, that was present. At least just conveying a different point of view. It's so important that we're a part of the conversations and that we're represented. Black women are able to have great minds, great impact, and provide great results. Honestly, I mean, when given the opportunity, we've proven and shown repeatedly that we are capable, we are qualified and we can get the job done the same, if not better, in some instances, than our male counterparts. So I think it's super important. It's important for my female student athletes, for them to see somebody who looks like them in those positions of influence and positions of power, and where you do have decision making capability. It's a male dominated industry. I knew that coming into it, but that was, again, part of my draw. How can I make change? How can I provide impact? How can I leave legacy? I know we'll talk about that a little bit later, but what is my legacy? What do I want it to be? What does it look like? It's just important to have representation, because it offers different perspective. And at the end of the day, you hope that, you're going to gain something that's going to be beneficial for everybody, not just the student athletes, but the individuals that are in the room. I've been in so many different um, conference rooms and boardrooms and things like that. I am the only person that looks like me. So we have to change that narrative and start to grow, our networks and our presence in those rooms. That's how we talk about the change in NCAA, kind of getting with the times. This is how we do it. We got to have different faces than the ones that we see quite often that are in those positions, especially at the national level with the NCAA.
Yeah, absolutely. And we just applaud, the work that you do right off the bat, because like we talked about earlier, we don't see too many black women in the position you're in. So you're a face for the younger generation. You're kind of like a mentor, a role model. They see you to say, okay, maybe I can see myself in this position.
Absolutely.
She's in the position she is. So so definitely just want to give you a big shout out, because yeah, you're doing big things out here, and that's exactly what we need for sure.
I appreciate that, Kevin.
Absolutely, yeah. So um, how is the labor of women of color being recognized and compensated, in the NCAA?
I think uh, we're seeing growth. We're seeing change. A couple of Division I Vanderbilt, I think recently just promoted from within, and they now have a black female athletic director. A good friend of mine is at Alabama State. She's a black female athletic director. Um, Couple of other in Virginia, she's a pretty Carla, she's a pretty prominent name. So we're seeing more of us, right? Which is, I think, we're making steps toward in the right direction. But again, it's about opportunity. We have to be able to um, be given the opportunity. And I say given, not, using the term loosely, because we earn it. Everything we do, we have to work harder. We have to be smarter. We have to put forth more effort, maybe sometimes even dedicate more hours, more times. Our credentials have to, be a little bit more polished and impressive. Our resume has to have a few more bullet points. So, until we can definitely get to a point where we've really leveled that playing field, and we see it, I think, too, on the national scene with, like our U.S. women's soccer team fighting for equality, on that front, just equal pay. And that's a whole nother conversation for a different day. But it's all related. Women in sports, we have influence, we have power, we have presence, and when allowed and provided with the platform, we've proven it can be lucrative. We can be successful. We can make good decisions. We can, increase viewership. We can have our name signing, large sums of checks as well. So, the crazy thing too is when you kind of unpeel the layers behind some of these, prominent names and figures, there's a female somewhere in the room. So you got to know all those ideas that are presented in the way that they are. You got to see how, kind of the ingredients that were in the kitchen when you were actually trying to bake the cake, so you got to have the people that you feel like can help you produce a great product. And I think women are definitely a part of that group.
Most definitely, most definitely. The space, well, the space is there. The NCAA just needs to allow it.
Mhm.
Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, and that leads me to my next question. Well, what is the NCAA, even the institutions, what do they need to do to increase the number of black women in athletic administration positions?
Hiring practices. That's going to be your number one, I think, area that you can target. Um, job where you post jobs, right? Are you posting on jobs that or sites that have traffic, that's heavy with one race or with one industry? Some people hire headhunters or firms that are built just to make hires. Those are kind of good old boy clubs sometimes. It's, oh, well, I know this guy and he owes me a favor, or, I worked with his cousin or his uncle. And, it's hard to kind of tap into those networks because they're so predestined, right? They're so their foundation is rooted in kind of nepotism in some ways. So trying to penetrate those systems and get into those and look at where are we posting our jobs, how long are we posting them, are we marketing to individuals of color or sites that have a history of producing great candidates of color or whatever the case may be. How long are we posting, and where are we marketing, what's our draw, are we being intentional about doing that, or are we just okay with the status quo? Oh, we just posted on the same places we always post. Well, then you're going to get the same candidates that you always get. So there's got to be change, there's got to be willingness to address that. And the first step is you got to take a hard look in the mirror, right? And look at your staff, look at your department. You can, I know I do this sometimes, I'll just go on a random Division 1 website. Let me just click on the staff, and you'll be amazed at what you see. There's not a lot of representation. So that's, I think, step one, right? Is somebody willing to step back and say, wow, look at our staff. I mean, we got a lot of people that look the same. Where's our diversity? And diversity, equity, and inclusion is a hot kind of topic now. You see a lot of positions that are being created, I think, at the institutional level and within athletic departments, which I think is great. But again, is it for the paper, or are you doing it for the people?
Mm. Wow. Yeah, doing it
The
for
paper,
the paper.
I mean, like, are you just trying to look good on paper?
Right,
Right,
for the
yeah.
media. Yeah, for
Not
the
like
media.
the cash money, but
Right.
yeah, are you doing it for the paper or for the people? So
Yeah.
Yeah, that's deep right there for sure.
All right. My next question I want to ask: what what forms of mentorship are available or being developed to support women of color to get into these positions?
So there's a great organization. It's called Women Leaders, kind of like the short version of it, but it's Women Leaders in College Athletics or in Sports. It's a phenomenal organization. Patty Phillips is the founder and CEO. They are making a lot of headway for women in athletics. So it's a great network for women. If you're able and you're an aspiring administrator, or you want to get into sports and you're female, it's a great organization to be a part of. I'm a member. So they have professional development opportunities. Pre-COVID, a lot was in person, and they've kind of shifted, like everyone else, to the online version and trying to doing everything virtually. But great resource. They have kind of what's called circle chats, so you can have even kind of like breakout rooms. Is kind of conceptually what it is, and different areas within the membership at hand, the larger membership at hand. So you'll have one for maybe mothers, so kind of a group where you can go to say, wow, it's really challenging to be a mom in this industry, and you have support and you can have conversations, and how do you have um, those tough conversations with the supervisor if you need to go on leave, or if you have a conflict with one of your children's events and a game or a contest that's going to be going on. So a lot of support that you can find there. A lot of mentorship. There's mentor pairing that goes on there as well. They have institutes, which are professional development kind of trainings. I went through one back in 2019. Best professional development I've ever attended, hands down. So it's just a great network. I still keep in contact with the ladies who were in my group. We have a group me. We check on each other. It provides you support because you have people who are having shared experiences and that are also trying to make headway and make a name, and allow us as women to have more of a presence. So I definitely would say Women Leaders in College Athletics is a great organization. I'd say they're kind of leading the pack when it comes to that.
Okay, nice. Mentorship, fellowship.
Yep.
That's nice. All right. To close, final question. I want to talk about the legacy that you want to leave. So when it's all said and done, you can just sit back and say, like, I did this. What does that look like for you?
So for me, legacy, the first part of that, and I kind of take the LEG, leave everything greater. So, legacy to me is about leaving things and leaving people and everyone better than you found them. And for me, I think it looks differently for everybody, but for me, a part of that is being present in the room, even when I'm not in the room. So I want to say something that's going to cause you to, take caution. Maybe next time you think you want to say something. I remember Faith said that. I don't have to be physically present in the room to have my influence and my hopefully legacy, still be in the room when I'm not. So that's kind of my mindset and how I like to approach things. I want to leave my student athletes better than when I found them. I had a student athlete, just probably at the end of this past semester in the spring, he came up to me. He's like, I did great this semester. I think I'm going to get an A in this class. And I'm really doing this. And I'm like, I'm very proud of you because when you showed up here, this was not the same individual that I'm talking to right now. So to be able to see the growth and witness, the change and the natural maturation process and, them just literally showing up on campus as a shy or a scared teenager and then to actually leave as a young adult who kind of hopefully has tools and training and experiences that have helped them, be prepared for their next step in life, whatever that is, whether if they're going to pursue more academic interest or if they're successful in athletics and want to continue their athletic careers, or if they just want to start their next chapter in life and, kind of enter adulthood. I try to tell them it's overrated, but, everybody has to get there at some point. But yeah, legacy for me is just leaving everything greater than how you found it.
Wow, leaving everything. What's that acronym? LEG. I like that.
Yep, leg is the
LEG.
first.
Leave
Yep,
everything greater.
leave everything greater.
Wow. Okay. Awesome. That's going to bring this episode to a close. Faith, we really appreciate you coming
Yes.
through for us.
Not
It's
a problem.
it's awesome to hear like like about your job, what it is that you're doing, what it is that you hope to do, especially your final part when you talked about leg. I'm gonna start using that leg.
Hey,
Leg,
there
leg.
you go. See,
Leaving everything greater.
leaving everything greater.
All right. Awesome. That's gonna be a wrap for this episode. We'll catch y'all in the next one. Peace.
Peace. Thank
Faith Ways, Associate Athletic Director of Compliance at Central Michigan. Man, let me tell you something. I didn't even know that was a position, Director of Compliance, and like that's huge. That's huge because like she's responsible for making sure basically that everybody's following the rules. That's like she has to interpret the rules. That's a lot of stuff to follow, like a lot of loopholes, like a lot of pitfalls, and Faith is responsible for making sure that doesn't happen.
Man, and you gotta think about it, like that's pretty much the entire athletics, so that she's in charge of. So that's a lot of athletes that she's overseeing. So the fact that she's in that position and she's excelling in that position is very big. Like, man, I was just glad to have her on and have her explain, her role and what she does and how she wants to see more, women look like her in those type of roles. So man, it was definitely a blessing to have her on.
Oh yeah, no doubt. And then even when I was scrolling down, and she brought it up too, I was scrolling down Central Michigan's website, and I believe she's one of the only black people on there. But she said you can go to pretty much pick out any D1 athletic faculty, like staff and all of that, and then you will see the same thing. But man, shout out to her, man. She said she wants to like make that difference, like leave an impact on people. What's that acronym she gave? LEG. Leaving everything greater. I like that. I really like that. I really like that.
Definitely.
All right, that's gonna be it for this episode. We'll catch you on the next one to Keeping It Real.
All right, peace.